community colleges were born here in Illinois. In 1901, William Rainey Harper, the president of the University of Chicago, helped establish the first one in the country called Joliet Junior College. The founders believed undergrad students should focus on general education coursework to establish a strong foundation for further studies. Since then, community colleges have grown and evolved over time. Is the historical role of the community colleges changing? That's the focus of today's discussion on The Professors. Traditionally, community colleges have been an affordable place where students can gather enough credits and then transfer to a four-year university. But because of recent economical upheaval, they are gaining more attention as the catalyst for sparking an economic recovery. President Obama is calling upon community colleges and businesses to form partnerships to train students with skills employers need. In his recent State of the Union speech, Obama challenged Congress to give community colleges the resources they need to become community career centers.
Places that teach people skills that businesses are looking for right now, from data management to high-tech manufacturing.
Dr. Vernon Crowley, longtime president of Moraine Valley Community College, says career centers are a wonderful idea and is not opposed to them.
But at the same time, remember, there are other individuals in the institution who are very interested in getting that transfer education as well. As a matter of fact, 68% of our students here at Moraine Valley are in transfer type courses here at the institution. This is what the community wants.
In December, Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel launched a program called College to Careers at the City Colleges of Chicago, aimed at grooming Chicagoans for success in industries such as healthcare and transportation.
And for too long, the city colleges have been off on the sidelines. I want to put them back on the playing field and give the kids a chance at both a career and a skills education that basically trains them for a career.
Under the College to Careers program, corporate partners will help design a college curriculum at the city colleges that will train students for jobs that need to be filled. Some question that approach, leery of corporatization of higher education. Dr. Margaret Lee, president of Oakton Community College, says, "You train animals and you educate people."
We need to help people learn how to learn if we're going to equip them for lives of work and learning, which I think is the role of education, and especially the role of community colleges.
I do have some problem if it's business people just marching in and dictating the curriculum, that's going to be given at the institution. I think it ought to be a collaboration between business and the faculty members at that institution.
Reporting for The Professors on WYCC TV, I'm Aaron Lee.
From across the city and the 7 city colleges of Chicago, broadcasting from 63rd and Halsted at Kennedy King College, The Professors, taking the art of conversation to a higher degree.
Hello, I'm Connie Mixon of Elmhurst College. Is the historical role of community colleges changing? That's the focus of today's discussion on The Professors. Joining us today are Professors Nick Panamitrios from Kennedy King College, the University of Illinois at Chicago, and Harper College. Also joining us is Pamela Canamore of Kennedy King College. Welcome all.
Good morning.
The focus of today's discussion is the historical role of community colleges and how that role has evolved over time. To get us started, let's talk a little bit about the historical role of community colleges.
Well, I do know that the first community college was Joliet Junior College, and sadly wasn't it created because the Harper president, no, Harper is his name, William Rainey Harper, he was the president at that time of the University of
Chicago, University of Chicago,
and he developed this brainchild to be a gatekeeper to keep out students from coming to the University of Chicago.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The state of Illinois lays claim to the very first community college in the entire United States, and that's Joliet Junior Community College. Community colleges at that time were called junior, although there's nothing really junior about community colleges today. But you're right, they were first started by William Rainey Harper, who was president of the University of Chicago. And part of his goal was for Joliet to be the institution that provided the foundation for baccalaureate transfer eventually. And interestingly enough, they also provided some occupational programs at that time. The city colleges of Chicago, which we all have some experience with, were actually founded in 1911, and they were just an extension of the Chicago public schools at that time. And Jane Addams actually referred to the city colleges as they were extensions of the K through 12 system as the People's College, which we still think of the city colleges today as being the People's College. Nick, any thoughts on some of the history of community colleges?
Well, I think you need to look at just the history of mandatory education in the United States. Mandatory education didn't sink its teeth into the United States until about 1915. So at that time, we were still struggling on having students attend secondary school. So I think that looking at that and then looking at the few universities that were around at the time, University of Chicago, Northwestern, University of Illinois, you didn't have that many students feeding into the system. And of course, there were diastemas between those secondary schools and the universities. So I think that the community college acted sort of as a conduit. And Harper perhaps thought that it was a way to keep students out of the University of Chicago, but I think that the policymakers realized that there needed to be some kind of a conduit in between, and then also socioeconomic struggles, people not able to afford University of Chicago, Northwestern, University of Illinois. So I think that the intentions were good.
Yeah, you talked about the policymakers. Harry Truman, as president, actually established the Truman Commission in 1947 to look at providing education close to home in actual communities. And that's when the term community college actually started to be used popularly. And the switch started to occur from junior college to community college. The actual 1947 Truman Commission, it had a great line in their final report. It said, "The democratic community cannot tolerate a society based upon education for only the well-to-do." What are your thoughts about that and the mission of community colleges today?
Well, I'm in agreement with that, because with the way the economy is now, we find that we get the greatest enrollment at our community college when there's economic issues. Many layoffs, when people lose their jobs, when people are between opportunities, they go back to school. And so the community college certainly is that place where they come. And it services the community, because it's not always for an academic program, but we have wonderful career programs, vocational programs. Kennedy King has the culinary arts program, the automotive program. So we certainly have, and the dental hygiene program. So we certainly cannot poo-poo the role, the great role that community colleges play. And so it helps many people, not just those that are looking to transfer or to graduate and work on their bachelor's degree or beyond. It's not just academic. It truly is for the community.
Yeah, community colleges really opened the door for folks that didn't have access to higher education previously, particularly GIs returning from World War II, the baby boomers in the 1960s. In the 1960s, there was one community college being built every week all across the United States. Community colleges today enroll like 50% of all undergraduate students.
Sure. And don't forget that 100 years ago, not that many people went to school. So going to a community college was a big deal. And I know it was a big deal through the 50s, actually through the 60s. So people didn't have access to schools, and those who went to community colleges, it was a big deal. It was prestigious. I graduated from junior college. And if you look at some of the greats of the past, Mark Twain, Rockefeller, Carnegie, Edison, Admiral Farragut, none of them even had secondary schooling, and yet, succeeded. So the community college was and still is a great institution.
What are some of the benefits? We talked a little bit about community being close to home. What are some of the other benefits of community college?
Well, the tuition costs are lower. At a four-year institution, there is an opportunity for the students to, for the returning student, meaning the older adult, who may have been out of school for a while. The community college is certainly a great place for them to come and get that foundation and to tie up any loose ends in which maybe they dropped out, had a family, did work for a while, then they made a decision, well, you know what, I want to tie up that loose end of education, and so that's one of the benefits. They can come to the community college to do that.
We have a lot of students that drop in, drop out, drop in, they kind of swirl around the whole system. They retool, they retrain as they advance throughout their entire life. It's kind of a lifelong opportunity for them to be able to come to community colleges.
Definitely.
And a lot of the professors that teach at these community colleges have the same degrees as those that teach at some of the major universities and have graduated from great schools. I don't think that there's really very much difference in the courses taught, except for the cost of tuition.
Absolutely, and smaller class sizes. I mean, you can go to a big state university and a student's going to be in a lecture hall of 300 students, and they might see a teaching assistant. Our class sizes average about 30 per student at community colleges, and they get one-on-one interaction with professors, many of which hold the highest degrees in their field. My own experiences at city colleges prior to joining Elmhurst College is that city college teachers know how to teach, and you have to. Sure. You have to know how to teach. Is some of the role of community colleges changing? A lot of recent attention has been paid on community colleges. In 2009, there was President Obama's graduation initiative. He has stated that he wants more and more Americans to obtain a college degree. His 2013 budget, I believe, has $8 million in it for community colleges and workforce training. Is the role changing? I mean, community colleges have always had a very broad mission. Part of it was that transfer baccalaureate preparation, but we've done things like workforce, we've done adult education, we've done community, continuing education. Is the role shifting now to maybe more of a vocational focus?
I think so, definitely. One of the things lacking in the United States is the appreciation for the trades, and I think the community colleges have sort of assumed that role of training people for the trades, from heating, air conditioning, culinary, other vocational type educations. And so I think it's very positive, actually, that they're doing that.
I think it's going full circle. I think that the community college still provides all those services and benefits that they always have, and maybe this is the new flavor of the month, that they're going to focus now on the career programs, vocational training programs, and then who knows, maybe 6, 10, 12 years down the road, then they'll focus back on the academic side of community colleges. But the great thing about it is it's all things to all people. So I don't think that the basic purpose of the community college has changed at all. I just think there's a new emphasis on one of the other great benefits of being enrolled in a community college.
You're right, there's a new emphasis on it. In fact, Chicago's own mayor, Rahm Emanuel, recently touted the city colleges of Chicago at the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And it's been in the media. I mean, he's very interested in the city colleges of Chicago, and he's talked about this Knowledge to Careers program to transform community colleges to meet the job needs of today and the future in a global economy. And you see changes that are happening in community colleges. You both think this is a good thing?
Well, I do. I definitely think it's a good thing because, well, let's admit it, everyone is not college material. Everyone cannot make that path on the academic side. So if they meet that fork in the road at one maybe the light bulb moment that they have, you know what? You don't need a bachelor's for everything. You really don't. We have some great certificate programs in which they can work in a vocational area, such as the dental hygiene program, the automotive program, the cosmetology program. And that does not necessarily take you on the academic route. And so of the vocational training programs, the career programs that we have, community colleges is certainly the conduit to help students make that decision that, you know what, I'm not really college material.
You know, I wonder, the state of Illinois enrolls 65% of all undergraduates in the state. So 65% of all undergraduates are attending a community college in the state of Illinois. On a side note, we only get 13% of the whole higher education funding, and it's not really a side note. You've already got limited funds that are going into community colleges. And I just wonder, with this already limited pool of funding, if we're shifting the focus to vocational education, if that's not a zero-sum game, that if we're not taking away from the other missions of community colleges by focusing more and more on vocational education.
I personally don't feel that's the case. I think they've expanded. There are budget issues, of course. I think that's what you're alluding to. but the fact that they've expanded their availability of different programs, I think, is positive, and I don't really see them cutting other programs out per se.
But we're at a time when significantly more numbers of 18 to 24-year-olds are choosing, it's not, yes, community colleges enroll more adults, but significantly more 18 to 24-year-olds are choosing community colleges these days since the 2007 recession, 2008. And they're looking for that typical, traditional baccalaureate preparation to transfer. By focusing more on vocational education, are we taking away from that original core mission of the city colleges?
I don't think so. I think that if they want to still
I'm
go for the
not buying it.
baccalaureate, they can.
I'm not buying it.
I don't think so.
I think that there's ways to blend the two, but I think that there's been an overemphasis on the vocational education part of it, and I already worry that community colleges disproportionately enroll more minorities and more low-income students. And if we're not already tracking them into a vocational type program, that where there's a lot of political pressure out there. We got to fill these jobs. We got to get people working. Are we just preparing them for the job and not a career? Are we giving them the skills they need to be able to compete in a 21st century economy?
I think we have to also look at the students that we are having enrolled at this time. When I take a look at the mandatory placement that we have in place, there's this issue of access and success. And community colleges have always been easy access for students to come. However, access to the college does not necessarily mean success. So if we can get these students, the ones that we feel are underprepared, based on their test scores, when they take the compass exam and the different tests, as they're coming in, we're telling them, yes, we have open door policy. It is great, wonderful, come. But then as they start taking these exams and they're getting placed in different classes, they're in pre-credit or developmental courses, remediation classes. And so before they can even get into the baccalaureate type program or the academic side of the community college, they're still doing remediation because somewhere there was a gap from high school to the community college. So we're doing them a disservice by saying, yes, we have open door, you have access, but I feel that we're setting them up to fail if we're saying, yes, every student should be a college degree student, and that's not the case.
I don't disagree with you.
So with opening the doors on the vocational side, that certainly would give that student the opportunity to consider, well, you know what, maybe the academic side is not for me. So I don't feel that the vocational side is such a bad deal.
I think that the community college, what's interesting about it is that it provides a somewhere for those that don't fit in the box necessarily to go, and if they decide, hey, after taking a couple classes in culinary or hygiene or one of the vocational areas, that they like it, they can pursue that. Also, it gives them a second opportunity if they didn't do well in high school, that they can show, hey, you know what, I got my stuff together, and I'm going to move forward. But I think it's an open field with nothing but opportunity. I don't think you could say anything bad about it. I think you're asking what was good about it. I think the question should be posed, what's bad about it?
My fear is that we're diverting resources. I think we should do both.
From where?
I think we should do both, and I think that both your transfer function and also your vocational function. In addition, we've also got to do adult basic skills and continuing education to fully meet the needs of the community. My fear is that this focus and all this attention on community colleges, I don't think anybody could say is bad. I think anytime we bring attention to community colleges is a good thing. I just fear that this focus on corporate partnerships, vocational focus, getting your first job, that's taking away from some of the other missions. And I don't want to lose sight of those other missions of community colleges as we do pay more attention to the career technical education mission of community
What are some of those other missions, Connie, that you think it's taken away from?
I think in particular it's taking away from the transfer and the baccalaureate aspects. And I think that we're focused too much on getting credentials and getting students out the door and not giving them the basic education, liberal education that's needed for the 21st century. I think that threatens things like our democracy. If we're not training our students to be able to think critically, to be able to communicate in writing and verbally, that it threatens not only their future, but also the future of our entire society. Are we creating citizens who vote and can actually dissent, or are we just creating worker bees?
Well, I think, well, I didn't mean to cut you off, Nick, but with the vocational programs, even the career programs, they're still required to do the minimum of the English, the math, some histories, so they're not just totally.
Yeah, but I worry that Verizon isn't too worried about that when they partner with a community college. I'm not so sure they're interested in students taking a class in art or history or humanities.
But the nice thing about the well-rounded student, because you're saying that,
I want well-rounded
right,
students.
you want more well-rounded students, but you're saying that they're taking the focus with the partnerships and things like that. But we just talked about the funding and budgeting, and certainly when you partner with a corporate organization, then that certainly helps bring some extra monies in, because they would want to help tailor some programs to help fund the program so that the students can be better trained for that particular area.
Yeah, and Connie, I think also when you said to learn how to critically think, you don't necessarily have to learn how to critically think in a traditional sense. You can learn through music. If you're doing something culinary, as I said before, these other vocational trades, there's critical thinking involved in all of those. I think a lot of people think, oh, you have to take math, you have to take history, you have to take English to learn how to be a critical thinker, but I think that you can get that out of almost anything. So even playing music, you'll learn how to critically think if you're good at it.
I don't doubt that there's other ways that people learn those skills,
Yeah.
But I think traditionally higher education has been one of the key factors in promoting those skills and preparing our students for more than just vocational pursuits, for broader civic intellectual engagement with society. And I just worry in the rush, and that there's a lot of focus right now on job training, career preparation. There's some federal money coming into it. All of our elected officials are talking about it, from President Obama to Governor Quinn in his State of the State address a few weeks ago, to our own Mayor Rahm Emanuel, that in this political push to create these programs, that we're also losing sight of some other things. I'm just worried about that. It doesn't seem to worry either one of you?
Well, what do you think is their incentive? But let's look to the intent. What is the intent? How does he gain otherwise?
I'm not sure I follow you.
If Emmanuel's pushing for this, what does he gain out of it? What is his
I think the intentions of trying to get more citizens of the city of Chicago working is a good thing.
Absolutely.
Is absolutely a good thing. I think that the best of both worlds is where we weave both our career preparation and the other missions of community colleges together. That's my only fear. I don't believe community colleges ought to be all baccalaureate. I think that we have other purposes, and I think they're very important purposes, and they meet the needs of our community. But in the same breath, I don't think we should all be vocational either. I think that there has to be a balance between the two, and I'm seeing the scale shift right now towards more of a vocational focus, and I'm worrying that we're not weaving the two together.
I think it's a good balance right now. I think it's shifted from being mostly non-vocational to that balance you're talking about. So if it stays where it's at, I think it's great. But I agree with you. If it for some reason it keeps on going that way, and you eventually have the demise of the traditional baccalaureate program, that would become an issue. But I don't think we're even close.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the whole purpose was providing access. Right. Pamela, you talked about access. Community colleges have been called democracy's open door.
Yes.
I worry that if we shift too much towards this vocational focus, that liberal education, baccalaureate education, will only be for the 1%. And the students that are already at community colleges, which I've said are disproportionately minority, low income, will be consigned to this vocational track. And I want to make sure that doesn't happen.
I hear what you're saying, but when I read the numbers, and I'm looking at this article by Hatton, where 62% of the incoming students who come into the community college have to take some type of remedial program. They have to take some type of developmental program. Well, they're saying right there that they're not prepared to do the rigors of college. And so Harper, in his vision in developing the community college, this gatekeeping system of having students stop here, a way station, before they go on to the 4-year program. This is an opportunity for those students who are in a remedial type program to make a decision, wait a minute, maybe I should consider a vocational track.
Right.
Maybe I cannot go to academic track. So I'm just saying maybe there's just...
You're right. 50% of all students in the United States need some form of remediation.
Correct.
Sheila Simon, Lieutenant Governor, just released a report, 46% of community colleges in Illinois need remediation. At city colleges, we're up near 90%. Remediation is a large challenge, and I'm afraid vocational may take away from the remedial function. We're nearing our time to end. Nick, any final thoughts?
I think that the community college has served a great purpose in the last 100 years, and I think that the incorporation of the vocational, the trades rather, has added significantly, and I think that community colleges play a huge role in helping those that don't fit in the box, that can't afford an education, and I think it's fantastic that we have so many community colleges in the United States.
Tamara?
I'm in agreement with Nick, and I just think it just seems like there's more of an emphasis on the vocational side. But I think we've gone full circle, and I think every few years there's just a different emphasis of what to look at with the community college. But I think it's all things to all people.
Mm-hmm. And I think community colleges do a great job of meeting the needs of their local community. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on The Professors.